They call her the Queen of Soft Life. Every December, Nkeka's Instagram feed is a masterclass in marital bliss. Matching pajamas, expensive jewelry, and a husband who looks like he stepped out of a cologne ad. But this Christmas, the Wi-Fi went down, the filters broke, and the secret Nkeka has been hiding for 3 years finally stepped out of the shadows. Stay tuned, because the difference between a like and a life is about to get messy. The humid air of Enugu in December carried the scent of burning harmattan grass and the distant rhythmic thumping of highlife music from a nearby street festival. However, inside the penthouse of the Marble Towers, the air smelt of nothing but midnight jasmine, expensive candles, and the cold, sterile scent of industrial floor wax. This was the sanctuary of Nkeka Obi, known to the digital world as @Nkeka_the goddess. Nkeka was a woman designed by 1,000 deliberate choices. At 26, she possessed a face that seemed constructed specifically for high-definition lenses, high cheekbones, skin the color of burnished mahogany, and eyes that always seemed to be reflecting a sunset that wasn't actually there. She did not walk, she glided, her movements choreographed by years of pageant training and the constant awareness that a lens might be focused on her at any moment. To her 500,000 followers, she was the ultimate Igbo success story, the village girl who had conquered the city, married the prince, and now lived a life of permanent luxury. Her husband Obinna was a perfect supporting actor. An architect by trade, he possessed the rugged, silent intensity that the internet mistook for deep, brooding love. He was tall, with shoulders that filled out bespoke suits with intimidating ease. In every photo Nkeka posted, he was seen leaning into her, whispering into her ear, or holding her hand with a firmness that suggested he would never let her go. But the silence in the penthouse was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of an empty theater after the audience had gone home. The marble floors were cold. The massive Christmas tree in the corner, decorated with gold-leafed ornaments and white velvet ribbons, was a prop. There were no presents under it that hasn't been emptied of their contents for a gift opening reel 3 days prior. Mbena, the photographer is here for the family morning shoot, Nkeka said, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. It was a sharp, practical voice, devoid of the melodic lilt she used in her voiceovers. Where is your brother Chidi? I told him he needed to be in the background for the extended family shot. People are asking why we haven't shown the brothers-in-law bond yet. Obinna did not look up from his laptop. He was sitting at the dining table, a sprawling slab of glass that was never used for actual meals because the placemats were too expensive to stain. The blue light of the screen washed out his features, making him look older, tired, and distinctly annoyed. Chidi is out, Obinna said, his voice a low rumble. My father called him to fix the generator at the old house in the village. Apparently, the reliable one you sent them for their anniversary stopped working 2 weeks ago. Nkeka stiffened. I didn't know. They didn't tell me. They didn't want to ruin your vibe, Nkeka, Obinna replied, finally looking up. His eyes were flat. And my mother said she isn't wearing those matching silk pajamas you sent. She says they make her look like a prisoner in a fancy jail. She's staying at her sister's house until the circus is over. And Nkeka felt a prick of irritation. This was her biggest shoot of the year. The Igbo Christmas Excellence Campaign was supposed to land her a contract with a major telecommunications brand. This isn't a circus, Obinna. This is how we pay for this apartment. This is how your father got that surgery last year. It's a business. It's a lie, Obinna muttered, returning to his screen. And the Wi-Fi is acting up again. I can't even finish these blueprints. The tension in the household was a living thing. A third occupant that sat between them at the table and slept in the space between their pillows. But Nneka was a professional. She had learned long ago that the truth was a flexible commodity. As the photographer, a lanky youth named Toby, who knew better than to speak unless spoken to, set off his lights. Nneka underwent a transformation. She applied a fresh layer of natural glow lip gloss, adjusted the silk robe that draped perfectly off one shoulder, and stepped into the light. "Okay, Obinna, stand behind me," she commanded, her voice suddenly sweet. "Put your hand on my waist. Not like that, like you are protected. Look at the back of my head, like I'm the only thing in the world." Click, click, click. The camera captured a masterpiece. On Toby's digital display, Nneka and Obinna looked like the definition of marital bliss. The lighting made the room look warm and inviting, masking the fact that the air conditioner was broken and they were both sweating under the studio lights. The photo showed a husband and wife shared a private, intimate moment. It did not show that the moment after the shutter closed, Obinna dropped his hand as if her skin had burned him. "We're done," Obinna said, walking away before Toby could even check the focus. Nneka ignored the sting of his rejection. She snatched the camera from Toby. "These are good. Edit out the dark circles under his eyes and make the tree look taller. I want people to feel small when they look at it." By noon, the first post went live. The caption read, "Nneka and Obinna says here in blessed marital bliss. Waking up in the arms of my king. There is no Christmas like an Igbo Christmas. #blessed. Marriage goals. Soft life." Within minutes, the likes began to pour in like a flood. "God, when?" one user commented. "Nneka, you are living my dream," another wrote. "See how he looks at her. True love still exists." Nneka sat on the edge of the bathtub, the only room with a lock, and scrolled through the comments. Each like with a tiny hit of dopamine that numbed the hollow feeling in her chest. She needed this. She needed the world to believe she was happy, because if they didn't, the whole tower of cards would come crashing down. The reality was that the goddess was drowning. The penthouse rent was 3 months overdue. The designer clothes she wore were often returned to the boutiques with the tags tucked in or sold secretly on secondary markets to pay the electricity bill. Obinna's architecture firm had lost its primary investor 6 months ago, and instead of scaling back, Nneka had doubled down on the luxury content, convinced that a successful image will attract new clients. Her phone buzzed. It was a WhatsApp call from her mother, Mrs. Anya Hokum. Nneka sighed and answered. "Nneka, my daughter," her mother's voice boomed. "I just saw the video of the new SUV you posted this morning. Praise God. My father was so happy. He was telling the neighbors that his son-in-law is the king of Enugu." Nneka felt a cold knot of guilt. The SUV was a loaner from a dealership for a 3-day promotional window. She didn't own it. "Yes, Mama, God is good," Nneka said, her voice sounding thin to her own ears. "Listen, Nneka," her mother continued, her tone shifting to something more urgent. "Your brother Ike, he's had some trouble at the university. They increased the fees and you know your father's pension hasn't come. Since things are so rosy over there and you are buying new cars, can you send 200,000 for his tuition? And your father needs his heart medication, the imported one." Nneka stared at the gold-plated faucet. She had exactly 45,000 naira in her bank account, and the credit card was already humming with the weight of the Christmas dinner groceries she had ordered on credit. I'll send it tomorrow, Mama," Nneka lied. "Obinna is just moving some funds around." "Thank you, my daughter. You are the pillar of this family. We are praying for you every day." When she hung up, Nneka felt like she couldn't breathe. She stepped out of the bathroom and found Obinna in the hallway. He had been listening. "How long longer, Nneka? How long longer what? How long longer are you going to keep up this lie? You are promising money we don't have to your family. You are making my father think I'm a millionaire when I'm actually considering selling my office equipment just to keep the lights on here. I am building a brand, Obinna. Brands are for products." Nneka screamed, her composure finally breaking. "Brands are for products, Nneka. I am a human being. This marriage is supposed to be a partnership, not a marketing campaign. Do you even remember the last time we talked about something that wasn't about content or engagement? I am doing this for us," she screamed. "I am doing this so people respect us. In this city, if you look broke, you're broke.
I am keeping our heads above water. No, Obinna said, his voice dangerously low. You are holding our heads underwater and telling us to admire the reflection on the surface. He walked past her, grabbed his car keys and left. The heavy door of the penthouse clicked shut, leaving Nneka alone with her 500,000 fans.
Christmas Eve arrived with a heat that felt oppressive. The city of Enugu was alive with firecrackers and the smell of roasting meat. But inside the penthouse, the atmosphere was frozen. Nneka had planned the grand Igbo Christmas Eve dinner. It was to be the centerpiece of her holiday content. She had hired a high-end caterer to prepare a traditional feast, but with a modern, luxurious twist. She had rented a solid silver cutlery and hand-blown crystal glasses. She had even bought a dress, a shimmering emerald green lace piece that hugged her curves and sparkled under the lights. But the universe seemed to have decided that the facade had lasted long enough. At 4 p.m., the caterer called. Madam Nneka, I'm so sorry. My delivery van was involved in a scrap and the food is ruined. And because you haven't cleared the balance from the last 3 events, my boss says we cannot send a replacement without a cash payment up front. Nneka's heart dropped. I'll pay you. Just send the food. Cash up front, madam. 500,000 naira. Nneka hung up, hand shaking. She looked at her phone. She had 10% battery left, and the power in the building had just switched to the generator, a generator that was low on diesel. Obinna, she called out. Obinna, I need the credit card, the one for the business account. Obinna emerged from the bedroom, but he wasn't wearing the suit she had laid out for him. He was wearing an old t-shirt and shorts. The business account is empty, Nneka, he said calmly. I closed it this morning. I used the remaining balance to pay your mother for Ike's tuition and your father's medicine. I also sent some to my parents. Nneka stared at him, horrified. You did what? That was the money for the dinner, the guests, the influencers, the photos. There are no guests, Nneka. I called them all. I told them the party was cancelled. I told them we were having a private family moment. You ruined it, Nneka shrieked, launching toward him. You ruined everything. Do you know how much work I put into this? My followers are expecting a live stream at 8 p.m. Then tell them the truth, Obinna shouted back, his face flushing with a rare display of emotion. Tell them you are sitting in a dark apartment because you spent the electricity money on a dress. Tell them your husband is depressed because he feels like a prop in his own life. Tell them the queen of soft life is actually the queen of debt. Nneka, I hate you. Nneka sobbed, sinking to the floor, the emerald dress bunched up around her, the sequins catching the dim light of the emergency bulb. I hate how you don't care about her image. I hate how you make me feel like I'm crazy for wanting a good life. A good life isn't something you show, Nneka. It's something you have. Obinna sat down on the floor across from her. He didn't try to touch her. He just watched her cry. Suddenly, the hum of the generator died. The penthouse was plunged into absolute crushing darkness. The city lights outside flickered, but the marble towers remained blank. The silence that followed was deafening. Nneka reached for her phone, her instinctual reflex to find light and connection. She saw a notification on her screen. A fan had tied her in post. Spending my Christmas Eve eating bread and tea, looking at Nneka the goddess to remind myself that one day I will be happy too. Thank you for being an inspiration. Nneka looked at the comment, then at the dark, empty kitchen, then at her husband, who was nothing more than a shadow in the corner. She felt a sudden violent surge of nausea. She wasn't an inspiration. She was a trap. She was the reason this girl felt her own life wasn't enough. She was the architect of a beautiful, shimmering lie that was currently starving her of actual joy. In the darkness, Nneka didn't record a video. She didn't take a photo. She simply put the phone face down on the cold marble floor. Obinna, she whispered. I'm still here, he replied. I'm scared. Good, he said, his voice softening just a fraction. Scared is real. Scared is a start. The morning of Christmas Day dawned with a soft grey light that filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. There was no alarm clock, no photographer knocking at the door, and no frantic schedule of posts to maintain. Nneka woke up on the sofa. She hadn't bothered to move to the bed. Her emerald dress was wrinkled and her makeup was smeared across her face like a war paint of failure. She walked into the kitchen. Obinna was already there. He had managed to find a small camping stove and was boiling water for tea. There was a loaf of agege bread on the counter and a small tin of sardines. It's not exactly a grand feast, Obinna said, not looking at her. Nneka sat down at the glass table. She looked at the bread. She hadn't eaten real bread in years. She always insisted on gluten-free artisan loaves that looked better in photos but tasted like cardboard. She took a piece, spread some sardine on it, and ate. It was the best thing she had tasted in months. I didn't post anything last night, she said. I noticed your phone has been buzzing like a disturbed beehive. I think I'm going to leave it off today. Obinna finally looked at her. He saw the smeared mascara, the messy hair, and the genuine exhaustion in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, he didn't see a goddess. He saw Nneka, the girl he had met in a small Liberian sukkah, the girl who used to laugh until she cried at his terrible jokes. My mother called. She wants to know if we're coming for the village meeting on the 27th. No cameras, no matching outfit. Just us, Nneka. Nneka nodded. I'd like that. I want to apologize to her and to your father. You don't need to apologize for being broke, Nneka. You need to apologize for being absent. They spent the rest of the day in a strange, quiet limbo. They talked not about the brand, not about the followers, but about their debt. They made a plan to move out of the penthouse into a smaller, more affordable house in a different part of the city. They talked about Obinna's farm and how they could rebuild it with honesty rather than flash. Nneka felt a weight lifting off her shoulders, a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying until she set it down. The queen of soft life was a heavy crown to wear. In the afternoon, she finally turned her phone on. She had thousands of notifications. People were genuinely worried, some were angry that she hadn't posted the big reveal. She opened the Instagram app. Her finger hovered over the create button. She looked at her reflection in a mirror. She looked terrible by her usual standards. Her skin wasn't glowing, it was sallow. Her hair was a mess. She took a photo. It wasn't a created shot. She was sitting on the floor of her kitchen with a camping stove in the background, a half-eaten piece of bread in her hand. She didn't use a filter. She didn't edit her waist or brighten her teeth. The caption was simple. This is my real Christmas. No catering, no lights, no glamour. We are struggling, we're in debt, and we're trying to find our way back to each other. I'm sorry for the lie. This is the only soft life I have right now. The truth. She hit post and turned the phone off again. The reaction was a landslide. Within an hour, Nneka lost 50,000 followers. The luxury brand she had been quoting sent emails withdrawing their offers. The friends she had made in the influencer circle stopped tagging her. But something else happened too. Her inbox began to fill with messages from people who weren't looking for an inspiration, but for a comrade. Thank you for this. I thought I was the only one feeling because my Christmas wasn't like yours. I'd been hiding my debt too. This gave me the courage to tell my husband the truth. Nneka didn't see most of these until days later because she was too busy packing boxes. The move to the smaller house in the New Haven area of Enugu was grueling. There was no elevator and they had to carry their own boxes. Chidi, Winner's brother, came to help. He didn't ask about the goddess or the king. He just handed Nneka a bottle of water and told her she looked better without the heavy paint on her face. On their last night in the penthouse, Nneka and Obinna stood on the balcony. The city was glowing below them. Are you going to miss it? Obinna asked. Nneka looked at the marble and the gold and the empty space where the massive Christmas tree had stood. She thought about the likes and the comments and the constant gnawing hunger for validation. I'll miss the air conditioning, she joked. And for the first time in years, the laugh that came out of her wasn't for the camera. It was loud, ugly, and perfectly real. Obinna laughed too, and he pulled her into his arms. There was no photographer. There were no studio lights. There was just a man and a woman standing in the dark, finally beginning their marriage. Nneka realized that the most dangerous thing about the internet wasn't the trolls or the hate. It was the beautiful lies that made you hate your own reality. She wasn't a goddess anymore. She was just a wife, a sister, and a daughter. And for the first time in her life, that was enough. As they walked out of the marble towers for the last time, Nneka took one last look at her phone. She didn't check her notifications. She just used the screen as a mirror to check if she had any dust on her face, smiled at herself and slipped the phone into her pocket. The soft life was over. The real life had finally begun. If this story opened your eyes to the filter we all left behind, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the realest African stories every week that go beyond the surface. Join our community today. Now, I have a question for you. If you had to delete all your social media tomorrow, would you still be happy with the life you have left?
Or would you realize you've been building a house on someone else's land? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I am reading every single one.